Good afternoon, everyone. We're thrilled to be here to be among so many passionate human insight explorers. My name is Dannie, and I'm a Senior Manager of Consumer Market Insight in Unilever. Today, I will co-present with my lovely agency partner, Maya, who is a Strategy Director in Space Doctors. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to share with you an interesting case study we worked together, and hopefully there's something relevant and insightful for each of you to take away. So let me tell you a little bit of where this business case comes from. I work in a quite unique business unit called Unilever Food Solutions. It's one of the few B2B business in the company. Our playground is in the deep heart of the out-of-home F&B market, where we provide professional ingredients and service to millions of chefs, cooks around the world, from hawker centers to five-star hotels. As a business, we anchored our purpose in helping chefs so we can free them that they love what they do. And we achieve it through providing them with a wide range of product and service that help them to create tasty meals conveniently. Now, like many of you, we work in the FMCG world. And reluctant as you're willing to admit, in FMCG, we sell commodities. Yes, we have well-loved brands, we have beautiful packaging, fancy campaigns, amazing communication. But at the end of the day, a consumer buys a product because she needs a shampoo, she needs a laundry powder, she needs a seasoning, or a mayonnaise. The good news for us is she needs us. She needs us every day. In fact, she cannot live without us. That's why they keep demanding for more and better. So our game in FMCG is to keep our consumer excited through continuous innovating and make those ordinary everyday objects extraordinary, sexy, purposeful, and fun. So that's our game, and many of you play it really well. It's relatively easy in some categories, and more challenging in others. In my case, mayonnaise was a tough one. We tried many things in the past. We tried segmenting mayonnaise into different applications. We created variants of mayo that does best in spreading, in filling, in topping, and salad dressing. It didn't work. Because in Asia, our chefs prefer to use one mayo for all applications, and they love that versatility. We also tried creating a super premium mayo that mimics scratch and almost as good as scratch made. Guess what? It didn't work either. In fact, Asian chefs, they don't necessarily hold scratch made as a golden standard, as most of them have never made a scratch mayo before. And the super premium price point, absolutely a stopper. So our challenge remains, how do you create excitement and growth in a saturated and commoditized category like mayonnaise? If any of you have brilliant ideas, please come talk to me. Love to have a chat. So that's the moment I encountered with Space Doctors, and they brought me into this wonderful world of semiotics, where you can distill insights from deciphering language and sensory cues. At first, it was counterintuitive for me, in a category where our consumers cannot even articulate what they want, how can language and culture expert help us? And then Maya convinced me, actually, it can. If our consumer cannot articulate what they want, semiotics can go into those unspoken cues and decipher the meaning from there. And we have a premium brand, but we don't know how to maintain that premium into the future. Semiotics can help us to decipher what makes our brand premium and what does future mean for premium and the meaning. What's more, we want to connect with our future decision makers who are the millennial chefs, but we don't know them enough. So that's where semiotics and culture insight comes in, to help us to understand them better and deeper so we can build a strong connection. So that's 3 reasons convinced me to collaborate with Space Doctor, take a leap of faith in semiotics, and they did not disappoint us. We had amazing, fantastic learnings. So let me pass to Maya to share more with you.
Thanks, Danny. Can you all hear me? Because I have this invisible mic and I'm not so sure if it works, but you can hear me. Oh, thanks. It's always great when a client comes in, does the plug for you, right? So yeah, it was really great to work with Danny. She did take the leap of faith in us. But what was really exciting, and when we were trying to figure out what kind of entry do we apply for this fantastic event, Danny and I spoke about it's mayonnaise. We're going to future-proof mayonnaise. Doesn't that sound amazing and yet at the same time ridiculous? So yeah, we're going to talk about how to future-proof dressings for UFS through semiotic and digital ethnography. So Danny's already told us about the cell, and I'm going to take you a little more into the process, hopefully not bore you to death in the meanwhile. As Danny said, that there was a lot of research that they already had. They'd spoken to chefs, and chefs were not able to articulate what it is that they needed out of mayonnaise because there was so very little that they could possibly think of that they needed from mayonnaise. Quite often we encounter that barrier going to consumers because there's only so much you're aware of, the way you're thinking and why you're thinking the way you're thinking, and it's hard to go many layers behind that psyche. And it was great to hear so much about culture earlier today. So again, thanks to my lovely industry colleagues, especially Daksha, who just went up and spoke in detail about cultural frameworks. I really need to fleetingly touch upon the fact that we had to step out of just the chef and the mayo into a wider context of the chef's kitchen to actually understand the dynamics there. And that was the cultural context that we went into to have a top-down view of what could actually engage the chefs, how could the brand generate some kind of love and a more emotional dynamic with the chefs and mayonnaise, and how to tell interesting stories with a dressing or a dip. So broadly, again, without going into a lot of detail of the process, given that we looked at the chef's kitchen as our frame of reference, in our digital ethnographies with chefs, we didn't talk to them about mayonnaise. We didn't talk to them about their cooking process or anything like that. We talked to them about their kitchen. We asked them to send in videos. We asked them to send in photos of things about their kitchen that they love. What is it that makes their life in the kitchen really exciting and extraordinary? And what are the things that they value in their kitchen? We also sent them quite a few projectives that came out of our semiotic work to see what of these from these projectives, what are the objects that they pick as value adding or premium or interesting, something that could justify that additional price point. In parallel, we also looked at culture. We looked at the culture where that a chef lives in, and what could this possibly be? We looked at shows that are out there. There are a whole bunch of reality TV shows. We looked at chef journals. We studied them in a lot of detail. We looked at the products that are being communicated and sold to chefs specifically, and also in the kind of professional arena. We also added a more strategic, commonsensical kind of, sorry, I need to put my phone away because it's ringing and I just installed it yesterday. I don't know how to turn it off. So the third layer was actually understanding the brand and understanding its closest competitors. So we could then look at the culture, look at what the chef needs, and overlay the brand truth and the brand key and identify the values that were core to the brand and identify what it could leverage from culture. Quite simple. And you're probably all familiar with it. So now I'm going to take you into a little glimpse of the insights that we got out of this process. As part of our digital ethnography with the chefs in the professional kitchen context, well, we had quite a few learnings, and some of the key things that we identified. We went in with the hypothesis that chefs are quite isolated in their kitchens. The kitchen is a fairly stressful place, and the chef doesn't get to see the light of the day. Doesn't get to see the light of the day, and this was also what made it particularly hard to just do qualitative research with chefs. They were just not accessible. But what we found was that chefs are human. They don't want to be seen as isolated individuals. They don't just want to be seen as kitchen bound, and increasingly the walls between kitchens and the diners were literally breaking down. Literally, like there are a lot of restaurants that are coming out there that are open kitchens, right? So you can actually see the process in front of you, and that's a matter of pride for the chefs. And that actually changes a lot of the dynamics within the kitchen. And also the chefs are increasingly engaging socially. There are so many apps that you and I use all the time when we're looking at where to go and have our next meal, with the reviews of the place and so on and so forth. And chefs are in that way engaging with the world outside. So just changing the way we started looking at chefs and representing them was something that this started giving us a little kind of glimpse into. And as Danny said, the whole business of UFS is based on coming up with kitchen solutions that can make the job easier for chefs. Now, a few years ago, I was sat in a conversation with Danny and did another project for them where there was a lot of just this feeling that chefs actually take pride in doing everything from scratch. Danny also touched upon trying to create that mayo from scratch as a product. But what we found is that with millennial chefs, they actually don't see that as a problem. They actually rely heavily and seek out solutions, equipments, and gadgets that make their life easier, so they can focus their time and their efforts on being creative or coming up with interesting ways of engaging with their diners. So this was, again, a shift from a hypothesis we went in with to something that's changing, and we'll see how culture actually corroborated with that particular insight. And we also, like I mentioned earlier in the pre-tasks, we kind of sent them a whole bunch of projectives which they responded to. We wanted to identify what were the cues chefs recognize as premium. Now, people can't just tell you, oh, that is a premium object. That is language we use in spaces like this and in boardrooms. So we just broke it down in pure Tagalog and Thai for them to understand, what about these objects do you admire, do you covet? What is it that stands out? What is it that makes it look interesting to you? What is it that you think will give value to your kitchen, and what would you pay extra for? And we were able to identify cues from different kind of packaging and selling stories that they were looking at as value adds. So looking at, in parallel, like I said, we were also looking at culture, and this is just to give you a glimpse of the kind of rigor that went into it. We looked at a whole lot of popular culture that is catering to chefs and the world of the kitchen out there. There's reality TV shows, there were books, there were movies made on chefs because it's a place rife with drama and ego and narcissism in some ways, and that's the image that we all have of the master chefs in our head. And then there's also a whole lot of businesses that are being built out of bringing the chef expertise into your homes. There's a whole lot of shows that are talking about engaging with your diners directly, the chefs and the diners having this open conversation. There are a whole lot of restaurant businesses that are built on actually getting an appointment beforehand, and the chef comes and takes you out from your table into the kitchen, shows you the process of your meal being made, and takes you back and helps you experience the food. And our researchers on the team, Grace Flavin, I must mention, had a good time doing this project, especially the bit about getting into the kitchen and coming back out. There are also a lot of messages that the category was sending out. And we studied the category not just of mayonnaise, but of spreads and sauces and dips and things like that, to understand where exactly was the category mirroring what the culture was talking about, and where exactly was the category saturated, and where were the opportunities. So looking at the wider canvas of the kitchen and what is going on in the kind of world that we're all fascinated by actually helped us look at mayonnaise through a different lens. One of the insights that came out of it was the fact, this is a typical semiotic code name, democratic expertise, and that kind of stands for a rich wealth of insights that can come from it. The central idea here was, as I mentioned earlier, we started seeing from the chef's tasks that the chefs want to engage with the world around them. We also started seeing a pattern in a lot of the culture that we studied, in a lot of the kind of new business models that are emerging, from professional chefs to your kitchens and you kind of engaging with a professional chef recipe and making all of that with the curated box of ingredients that the chef has sent you, that there's actually fewer and fewer boundaries between the professional chef and the cooks. There are a whole lot of amateur cooks who are really interested in cooking, who participate in courses, who have their own blogs, who also have a whole bunch of tips and tricks up their sleeve. And the chefs really appreciate this exchange of information. They were no longer looking up to somebody with 20 years of experience for all of that wealth and guidance, wealth of knowledge and guidance. So there was this whole emergence of the everyday cook and the removal of these kind of boundaries in terms of social hierarchies, as well as physical boundaries, literally in terms of kitchen walls and diner spaces. So that was an interesting and pretty deep insight, which had wider implications to the brand and the kind of communication that was going to be drafted on the basis of. Another thing which which we definitely would find it really hard to elicit out of conversations, even with you and me, is just the idea of the representation of food. So now we all glamorize and we love the fact that, ooh, plating, look at the way that food has come out. Wow, it looks so amazing, it looks so delicate, it looks so creative, it looks so dramatic. But there was also this new kind of parallel aesthetic that was developing that was really about making the simplest of things sing. And as you can see in that video that's playing in the background, that guy, his name is Babish, and you should check him out if you like cooking. He just really makes very simple things look really, really amazing. He teaches you how to make a basic omelette, but the way he does it, he's got a lot of flair. And it's not just him. There were a whole lot of people doing that on Instagram. There are a whole lot of ways in which ads, like butter ads, the Lurpak ad, if you've seen it, was just really glorifying and going into the fine details of the way butter can make your dish amazing. So there was something about elevating basics which felt so apt for mayonnaise, right? Just a dollop of white cream, like what could you do with it? You could elevate it. So these two were just a glimpse of the kind of anchoring insights that we got. Of course, we had like a whole bunch of 16 to 18 codes that went into the ultimate report. And then this slide here, I could speak for at least an hour about this slide, but I'll try and keep it short. This slide here is a semiotic meaning map. And what it helps us do is actually provide a strategic framework to organize all of these insights we've got from our cultural work, the category work, the chef conversations. It helps us kind of organize it into 4 meaning quadrants. So essentially, we could say that reassurance and consistency, perseverance and craft, seductive storytelling, and informed preferences were broadly the 4 spaces that defined what the chef values in his kitchen. So this is a map of what a chef values in his kitchen. And as we were discussing it with Dannie and the team, we found it quite useful, not just for Mayo, but Dannie and I had conversations about how their entire portfolio of kitchen solutions could go into this map. So it actually gives you a very strategic sense of, if we're looking at the kitchen, then anything that's relevant to the kitchen can be laid on this map, because you've got fundamental cultural meanings, and the 4 meaning quadrants of reassurance, perseverance, craft, seductive storytelling, and informed preferences, they're not going to go away very soon. So this is how it's different from a trend. But the expression of it evolves. And that's what we've captured in those boxes with the kind of arrows and the shifts. So it takes you from a residual space, and Trisha earlier in the day was talking about dominant and emergent. So again, I don't need to go into an explanation of what is that. Thank you. So we're going into the emergent expressions of what the chef, the millennial chef especially, is starting to value in his kitchen. Just to carry on with that kind of trail of thought of the democratic expertise, in the Perseverance in Craft Square, there is a sense that the chef culture honors experience and honors this hierarchy and mastery and skill that is acquired over years. That's not going away at all, but there is more room made for this kind of collaborative spirit that allows a free exchange of ideas and skills. And that's quite a significant shift in the way the kind of millennial chef is looking at his or her world around him. And that was something the brand had to recognize to engage with this audience. So what we also found that on the left hand, the need for reassurance, consistency, and informed preferences is a very functional requirement. It is speaking to the rational part of the chef's brain, where he or she seeks out information and reassurance, and this is something he or she is quite happy to find from the pack, the ingredient, the labels, and all of that. So we said, all right, your packaging needs to deliver all of this information, provide with the reassurance, and UFS is a heritage brand. There's already a lot of trust in it. What needed to be done actually is this emotional salience via digital storytelling, that they need to reconnect with this millennial chefs. They needed to present mayo in a very different light, and they really needed to inject that excitement around mayonnaise and recreate that love that the brand had generations before. So this is this is a bunch of slide on slides, which is essentially to tell you that we did a lot of great work. Not everything was just one big picture on the slide. So we provided quite a few opportunity territories, where on the left side we said, here's some packaging guidelines on what you should kind of be doing and how you should be using your packaging to actually deliver that kind of reassurance and information to your chefs. And on the right-hand side, we had some selling stories, or some opportunity territories, as we call it, that the brand could leverage in order to write its creative briefs, write its activation briefs, and also represent the kind of chefs that they want to talk about online. Give you an example of the kind of inspiration that went into packaging. Now, UFS and the brands that we were working for with their mayonnaise team, Best Foods and Lady's Choice, they've been around for nearly 100 years or so. It's very hard to change the packaging and transform it overnight, but our creative team provided quite a bit of inspiration on how you can provide sensorial richness, even if it's just mayonnaise. So if you can see there, that packaging is really just pure white and milky and creamy, but still provides a lot of richness in the way that you can kind of play with highlights and shadows and transparency. There's also guidance on how you can tell really great stories through your pack, through clear typographic hierarchies, what's the brand name, what's it made of, and what is the benefit. And it seems quite basic, but if you'd seen the packaging that was going into the chef's kitchens, you would understand where this came from. And here's an example of an opportunity territory that drew quite heavily from a couple of codes, and one of them was democratic expertise that we just showed. It's called Network Inspiration. Think of it as a positioning territory that came out of all of the work that we did, which basically spoke about the central idea. What is it in culture that actually is so important that the brand needs to leverage and siphon out of? And why is this a fit with the brand? What does it mean for the way that the product shows itself? What does this mean for your product shots? What does it mean for the way that you present recipe videos on your website? Do not use stock photos. Make it a bit messy. Have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Show sharing and fun and excitement and surprises and unpredictability. This might not happen in the kitchen every day, but it's still quite aspirational for the chef to see, especially on an experimental stage that Danny will soon talk to you about. And we said things like less of 2.5 spoons, pre-measured bowls, and less of exactitude. It kind of feels like part of a different world, and this is not the world that our chefs currently live in. We also spoke about how do you depict your chefs in all of your chef stories. So don't show them standing alone like this with the arms crossed saying, this is a mayonnaise that I recommend because I've been in your kitchen for 20 years. That, yes, it does have, people will just flick the pages with that kind of an ad, because not to say that they're going to disagree with it, it's just not exciting enough. It's quite a saturated message, and things have changed in their kitchen. And Danny will come back on stage to tell you about how they received the message.
Yes, so how did the business take forward with all the learnings? I think there's many things the business can do. As a starting point, the learning transformed the business in 3 ways. First, it transformed our relationship with our who. With a deeper and better understanding of millennial chefs, we found a perfect role where a brand can connect with them, and it also adhered to our purpose to free them to love what they do. So the role is to support them and facilitate their success. And based on that, we've developed a national campaign called The Choice of the Nation. And we created a platform inviting millennial chefs across the country in the Philippines to show off their talents, show off their creativity by creating magic dips of their own recipe. And we celebrate the winner big time on social media. Second, it transformed our understanding of the brand. For the first time, we have a better understanding of why our brand was loved and why our brand and product is premium. And more importantly, what can keep us being premium into the future. And thirdly, it transformed our packaging, as you can see here, into a new contemporary look that is more authentic, more relevant, and more future-proof. Most encouraging, the business took off. For the past 12 months, we were able to grow double-digit in our mayo business in the Philippines. So many thanks to Space Doctors and all the great work in deciphering meaning and brand cues. I hope our story today gave you some ideas how semiotics and cultural insight can spice up a saturated, traditional, and commoditized category like mayonnaise. And thank you very much.